Hey, this is Chadillac. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is the CRP, and this is Three Sides to Every Story. That's Miguel Iturrate. That's Devin Miller. And tonight we are talking about the one and only Donald J. Trump. And we're talking about 2020 and what's going to happen in 2020. Because, Devin, tell us what's happening tonight while we're talking about this. Take us through it.
Well, the first Democratic debate is tonight, and
So who's taking part in it?
how many candidates are there? 24 or something like that. But
23 at my last count.
You know how many are in the debate?
I don't know how many made the debate, but it's got to be less than 14, right?
Something like that. I mean, if it's even more than I would think 10 or 12, they're barely going to have any time to talk.
Yeah, I think it's got to be less than 14. So 13 or less is what I'm. If I remember right, that's the rule. But I don't know that much about it, to be honest with you, because in general, because I'm a centrist and I'm a far left liberal, even as a centrist, which I know that sounds crazy, but look, we're talking about three sides to every story. But the truth is that Devin would identify as, okay, so here's why we call this three sides. Because Devin identifies basically as a right-wing, conservative, Christian, white man. Miguel would identify as probably more of the centrist here than me, but he's taking the place of Scotty tonight, but Scotty had some other stuff going on. Scotty identifies as a far left progressive, and there's a big difference between what today's liberal is, which is me, which is I'm a far left liberal. I'm free food, free housing, free healthcare, and free education, and that's basically, and no war. And so that's pretty much what I'm for. So Miguel is kind of going to take Scotty's place tonight, and so we're not going to have that super far left. Hey, you can't say anything about XYZ kind of stuff, and we're fighting this and this and this, which I believe is the end of the Democratic Party. If we can't get our shit together, then Donald Trump wins in 2020 anyway. So there's 2 minutes of me explaining why. Devin, go ahead, man.
Well, this is three sides to every story, so we are going to have probably some differentiation tonight. I think a little bit more than what we had last week about the neo-Nazis in the farmers market.
Yeah.
Because I think we all found common ground on that issue. We just were I played kind of the devil's advocate with that about, okay, is this really a slope that we want to go to? And I think you kind of played the same devil's advocate with Miguel on censoring the N-word.
Except I wasn't playing.
And I wasn't playing either. I think those are genuine concerns.
Yeah.
Tonight we're going to have some serious policy differentiations that I think is what's separating the left and the right. Because I just heard you mention a few things. You mentioned free health care. You mentioned free education. You mentioned no war. Well, the first two, there's no such thing.
How are you going to pay for it all?
I was going to say the first two.
By not having war.
Just let me finish.
There you go.
The first two, there's no such thing. And the second part,
It's how they fund everything.
The second part on no war, I used to be right there with you, and I still kind of am, but I no longer would consider myself a pacifist so far. So say, because I've just kind of matured past that a little bit to where I realize that the world's a very complex place, and we're all intertwined in a certain manner. Sorry, and that after understanding what it takes. Sorry, I'm getting phone calls, but can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. You're freezing up a little bit on us.
Yeah, I keep getting a phone call. I'm sorry. This is I'm on my phone doing this, but anyway, I'm losing my train of thought here. But okay, going back to what I was talking.
Okay, so you were talking about being that you've matured so much that you believe that in your maturation, you've been able to maturate past the idea of killing, blowing the legs off of brown babies is probably a good thing to do. Through your maturation.
That's a very. I mean, you just painted with such a broad brush that now I think.
Yeah, that's pretty brutal, right? But I mean, that's what you just said.
That's how I view this stuff. Is that I'm just letting you know that, I'm pom-pomming that kind of behavior. Now, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, as I talked to you once in a podcast, there's this theory that historians have about how civilization developed, and they call it the crisis response theory. And what it basically comes down to is they analyzed stuff with ancient Egypt and ancient Sumeria, and about how they would congregate toward rivers. Like in Egypt, they would congregate toward the Nile River. In Mesopotamia, they congregate toward the Tigris and Euphrates, and that they would flood very violently. And it would actually layer a bunch of silt for good farmland. So they would try to huddle there and grow crops and stuff around there, but they had to stop it from flooding them out. So they started to band together for irrigation works and all this stuff. Well, when they did that and they learned to start taming nature, which is really the story of mankind in history, is taming nature from killing us. We see that with medicine, science, all this kind of stuff, is we learn to adapt to nature and to keep it from killing us. Well, they realize that doesn't stop the human problem of, you might develop this prosperous land that has this wide division of labor that is prosperous, and you guys are cooperating well and all this, but that doesn't stop foreign invaders from coming in and destroying you. Well, when we look at something like what's going on over in the Middle East, when you talk about no war, sometimes, number one, war is defensive and it's inevitable. There's nothing you can do about it. Number two,
of course,
we spent a lot of time talking about Nazi Germany last week. Sometimes not letting something organize and get to a point where it's going to cost thousands and thousands of lives and treasure and literally spark the world on fire, containing that from even growing and spreading might not be such a bad thing. And I have to admit, for anybody that's read my post for the past 8-9 years, that I am growing and developing on this subject of foreign policy. I'm learning more. I'm understanding the world a little bit better. I think that I'm not saying I'm a full-on neocon by any means, but I just am John Bolton and pom-pomming my way to war anytime there's a war. But sometimes, what's the alternative is the good question to ask there. But on your first premise about free healthcare and free education, those things don't exist, Chad.
Okay, well, we can cover that later. Miguel, kind of as the centrist tonight, and in a country, by the way,
shit up.
By the way, you're in a country that has just decided that by 2025, they're going to be completely plastic free. They're going to be carbon free, so no fossil fuels. And they're going to be redeveloping, which they've already started to do. They're redeveloping, and I go to Colombia every 2 months, and so I know that they're doing the same thing, and that's spreading all over South America as Brazil is cutting off the lungs of the world. But a lot of South America and Central America have joined in on this. So Miguel, sound off on where you're at with that, because I know you're expatriated to some degree, but you're still an American, right?
Yep, I'm an American citizen. I haven't voted probably since the hanging Chads. So it's been a while.
I don't like to brag. But
here's the deal. I'm not.
Told you that someone had developed an energy.
To me, I'm not a huge, into the details of politics, because I do take a step back and I do see a little bit of a charade and a little bit of a game behind the whole thing.
Yeah.
And to a certain extent, I think that a lot of Americans are really tired with the two-party system and stuff like that. You kind of are, but again, you live well, so, are you really going to go try to change the whole fucking thing? And that's really, difficult. So in some ways, Trump in his early portrayal in 2016 as an outsider, right?
Yeah.
And he was a businessman who said, as I think Chad or Devin pointed out, either here or in the pre-conversation, he was known as a Democrat from New York for a long time, politically, as a businessman who,
Yeah.
had Democratic leanings and stuff like that. And he came out, he said, I can run either way. It doesn't really matter. I'll run as a Republican. I remember it was frivolous how he chose the party and stuff. So yeah, he was an outsider. I think for that, he almost won some people over and almost cast a shadow over. The fact is that it's just he's another Republican, so it's more of the same.
Let me ask you. Let me ask you this then. What do you guys think of the idea that Trump won because he's punk rock?
But he's counterculture.
He is punk rock. I mean,
think
that guy's as punk rock as it gets. As far as look, he didn't accept a dime. He paid for everything himself, right? Supposedly, and I mean, we know that's not true. But in the open, what he had shown, he paid for his own election campaign. He paid for his own campaign. He'd done all of these things, and he'd said things like, he would come out and he would literally say, "No more bullshit." I saw flags everywhere. I live in Indiana. I live in farm country, Indiana, folks. You will see flags flying with Trump on the top and then the American flag below. And the Trump one will say, Trump 2020, no more bullshit. They have those flags out. And I see them all the time when I drive everywhere I go within a 40-mile radius of where I'm living right now. Okay? So think about that for a moment and think about how many North Central Indianas there are in the world that there are in the United States that have electoral votes. Now, when you start thinking about it like that, is Trump punk rock?
Now let me ask you a question. Before Devin's young, so Chad, you're old enough to know punk rock.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's fair. Is Trump is Trump NWA? Devin would know that. He knows hip hop.
I think what you're trying to grasp at that I think is foundational to where the left, because let's keep in mind for anybody that turns into this, Chad is not defending Trump. I guarantee that I'm going to be.
No, I'm not doing that.
I guarantee that I will be the one, if anybody, that's going to be on here making a case for Donald Trump's position, not Chad. But I will say I see what you're trying to grasp at here that I think is where so many people that tune into mainstream American media have got it so wrong about Trump.
You got it.
Left is that they see this as, they see the rise of Trump as being white, like what Van Jones said. This is a white lash. This is about white America rising up against the oppressive incoming of foreign nationals and the rise of minorities in America. That is not it at all. Just like Joe Biden said a couple years ago, the same people that voted for Donald Trump were the people that elected Obama. That is not true. What it is, where people are forgetting, is that this is a populist wave that's sweeping the Western world. It's all over Europe right now. You see it most notably with Brexit.
Well, Brexit is the same thing, right?
And what I think you were trying to grasp at the most there, that is when you call it punk or whatever you want to call it, is what you're really looking for is anti-establishment. And that
exactly, yes.
That is what Donald Trump was sold us. He sold us that he was going to be this populist nationalist, not in an ethnocentric way.
Drain the swamp.
That he was going to drain the swamp. That he was looking to get us out of.
Let me ask you guys a quick general question, because I know once you guys start getting into policies and stuff, I am out of touch being down here. But to a certain extent, you know, if you look back in American history, at some point, you know, I don't even know if Reagan probably was a lawyer at some point as well. But I think at some point,
he was not. He was not a lawyer.
But at some point with the Clintons and Obamas and Nixon and Gerald Ford's, the lawyers really did take over. You know what I mean? And if you look back at history before that, you know, it was all right to have a general like Washington, or for example, Andrew Jackson, you know, had military ties. Or said, you know, I don't want to get tied up in early history, but the Americans, the presidents were supposed to be the best of the fucking best, right?
Yes, correct.
They still should be.
And they still, and therein lies a little bit of where I think Donald Trump came in with some hope. You know what I mean? Because now at least you have a businessman, and other businessmen have tried it. I will remind you. Now, granted, the rhetoric in the country has turned ugly in many ways from 20 years ago or whenever it was. But I remind you, it probably wouldn't have been any weirder if Ross Perot had won, because you have an ego businessman who knew nothing but people telling him, yes, we're going to do it your way, now in charge of everything. And now his ego would manifest different. Ross Perot never grabbed a woman by the, you know what I mean? But
okay,
we would have had to deal with a weirdness that was a whole different weird, because he's not from Washington. He's not a lawyer.
Let me interject real quick. There is a big difference, though, with Ross Perot and Donald Trump, and that's the personality, obviously. You get this brash New York.
Okay, okay, let me cut you off. We cannot talk about personality. We have to talk about.
I'm going to go there.
We have to talk about policy.
Okay.
Mixed in with personality. We can't just talk about personality, or it doesn't work.
Let me get there.
Okay. Fair enough.
Let me tell you where I come from with Donald Trump. I didn't vote, and I've got people in my family who think I'm like an un-American. I might as well denounce my citizenship. I didn't vote in 2016. I couldn't stomach myself to do it. I was so disgusted by the whole just soap opera that was that election, and the kind of candidates that they insulted the American people with by rolling out Donald Trump versus Hillary Clinton to me. And I went back and forth. There was times I was giving him the benefit of the doubt, but then I would always go back to my default position. My gut instinct was that this is going to completely ruin the conservative movement in America when this guy comes in. I honestly thought that this was a deep fake. I honestly thought this was a inserted proxy by the left. I mean, it blew my mind that this caught fire so strongly under Donald Trump that I was screaming at people like, how are we being, did we not learn anything with the Obama administration? Because I felt like Obama did the same thing with the left. He came in and wooed them. Yeah. But then he turned out to be the exact same thing.
He turned out to be a rightist.
Well, he turned out to be straight up establishment. He came in, brought bankers.
Yeah.
Continued.
He's just another centrist. I mean,
he might have been a good gentleman, but he was definitely not this outsider ideologue that they thought he was. He was a great politician from birth. But with Donald Trump, I was sitting here saying the man's not a conservative at all. He's not going to govern like a conservative. And I had some you said personality stuff, but it does matter when we talk about Trump. I was worried about him being his ego. He was a narcissist. He's subject to flattery. He's a serial adulterer. You know, there's a lot of, and I was looking at it like, how are we ever going to have any sort of moral standing on the right anymore when we criticize and publicly bash Bill Clinton, and then we defend Donald Trump? The hypocrisy was so rampant on both sides during this.
Right. So let's talk about this then, guys. We're 18 minutes in. Let's pick a little bit of the subject to talk about, because we've kind of been a little bit all over the place because we're trying to establish what we're really trying to say here. So, Miguel, being in Central America right now, you have a completely different viewpoint of the entirety of what the American system really is that you grew up in. And in fact, you grew up literally beside Donald Trump's dad's house, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you grew up in the same neighborhood. Your brother shoveled his walks.
My brother shoveled their walks, but we grew up on the poor side of Union Turf. I put it that way.
Yeah, but I mean, but what I'm saying is that you do have sort of a connection.
No,
because of New York City. You have that connection.
I've known about him my whole life, and the bottom line is Devin summed them up pretty well. You know what I mean? It's like when I heard the grab a woman by the story, I went, yeah, he did that. You don't even have to freaking tell me. You know what I mean? It's like
Nope.
there are things where you just know the guy from reputation. You're talking about a guy. We did shows at his casino. And again, everything there is ego with the Trump name and this. And if Donald's there, it's a whole different atmosphere.
Oh, Donald's going to be here tonight.
And it is like that. And he really did transform himself into one of those people that, he is the Donald kind of thing. The Art of the Deal, the book, again, that was pretty garbagey, but it was ego, him putting out the board games in the 80s and stuff like that. He was, he was making the jump into being a public figure too and managing some money. I don't think he ever figured that he'd be president at that time. And that's why some of the transgressions that are, so public and that we know about, that we've never forgiven a president, though. We've never let a guy with those faults get to be president before. So that's the question, whereas, like, did the whole change come, this might be something that ties in a lot of our but like LGBTQ people tend to be democratic, right? But at the end of the day, does someone, from the LGBTQ community maybe have to, I don't know if forgive's the right way, but you can't judge Trump either, because then on that, like, we're not going to go to that subject, or I don't know what the right way to sum that up is, but do they have that in common, or did he ride that wave of we're now forgiving people?
Well, let me just interject real quick, and then you can talk to. I just want to make this one point. On that point, this idea that Donald, and I don't think you were making this, Miguel. I just want to clarify with this, that Donald Trump is some far right-wing social conservative. I mean, this is a man that his CPAC address before he became president said, when he was campaigning to the conservative Republican caucus that gave him a standing ovation, that we will protect our LGBTQ community from a hateful foreign ideology, and got a standing ovation at the Republican Party. He has single-handedly moved the Republican caucus, the conservative wing, so far left, socially.
Okay, so Devin, let me ask you this then, because here's what I wanted to get to. Because when you started, you said, I couldn't vote for Trump because I thought he's going to destroy the right. He's going to destroy the conservative, the conservative movement that we've put together. But the truth is that Trump saw George W. Bush get elected and said, if this idiot cowboy can get elected, and I don't think George W. Bush is that dumb, by the way, just for the record, I don't think he's a dumb man. And I don't think he did that bad of a job. He just simply had a lot to deal with. And he fucked up a whole bunch of stuff. There's no doubt about that. But and I think he if not for Cheney, I think the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration, would have been a completely different ballgame. But that's another story. But what I am saying is this: when Trump saw Bush get elected twice, he said, I could kill that guy. Because all Bush did was went out and went, shoo-wee, howdy, shucks. And every single person in middle America said, I'd drink a beer with that guy. I don't know how many times I heard, well, I'd drink a beer with him. I couldn't drink a beer with Al Gore. I couldn't do that. I don't know how many times I heard that. And so Trump kind of took that and he said, okay, I'm going to run to the Republican side because, let's face it, they're less educated, and that's a fact. The right has less people that are educated than the left does. And that you can call that indoctrination or whatever you want. It doesn't make any difference. It's just a simple fact. But Trump saw that, and he looks down upon the people that voted for him, and he patronizes them. Would you agree with that, Dev?
That he looks down on the people like the conservatives and patronizes them and looks down on them?
That he patronizes, not you because you're too educated for it, but the average guy that's out there wearing a MAGA hat, that Colby Covington. You think Colby Covington really understands politics in an in-depth way, and that he understands that drones are being dropped right now, and he really gets that? You really think he does?
I think Colby Covington's doing what you say that you argued with Chael Sonnen about. I think he's doing what he knows is going to get him attention.
Absolutely, I totally agree.
Negative publicity is good publicity regardless. When it comes to Trump, I don't want to take that. I can't speculate on that. I don't want to take that kind of a pessimistic view on who he is. I think that he genuinely, as much as I have some concerns about him and still do, I think that he did bring attention to certain things that would have never been brought attention to.
Give me 3 things that Trump's done that you absolutely agree with 100% and would never reverse.
Absolutely believe that him drawing attention to the manipulation of the news media has been the best thing about his presidency. The number 2 thing I would say has been immigration. I mean, discussing and yes, we can get into the inhumane things that are going on at the border that I think do need discussed, and nobody's supporting that. No,
there's a whole bunch of people supporting that.
No, well, we'll get into that. We're not supporting that. That's not. But I think context is important of why that's going on like that.
Okay.
But, and then on top of that, I think just discussing, about how both parties have been manipulated. I mean, when he stood on that debate stage, and Rand Paul who was my candidate at first, tried to call him out about this man's been buying or selling politicians for years. It's what he does. And he fired back with, that's right. I give them money and they do what I say, and that's the problem. And he's like, and he's taken every dime I've ever given to him. He killed Rand Paul's career.
That's true. That was a beautiful move.
Rand Paul's career right then. And he made one of the most substantial points that you'll never hear from a presidential candidate standing on that stage. That I've given them, I've wrote them checks, and they do what I say.
Okay.
That's the problem.
Okay, Miguel, same question. Tell me 3 things that you believe Donald Trump has done right that are irreversibly good.
To me, number 1 is he pardoned Jack Johnson.
Agreed. We all agree on that.
Number 2, there's like I said, I'm an outsider, so I'm not, like in the details of voting. But there's a few alarming things I notice over politics in America over the long haul. And what I want to touch on is, and you touched on it, it's like George Bush. Hey, ho hum, he came across as a common man and blah 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 blah. No. He's a trust fund baby, and he always was. And what you got a public persona, just like we got from Obama, just like we got from Clinton, and that why Hillary was kind of loathsome because they didn't get hers right. But every single one of them, including Trump, is a public persona. What you dealt with Trump is a guy who'd already been working on his public persona for other reasons for 40 years now. But I truly believe that. So now what happens is, you talk about Bush. It's like Bush is a second-generation president. That's insane. That's actually what the Constitution should be working against. That's what everything works against. You're not supposed to. Your kids are not privileged enough, you don't hand off reins like that. But that literally is what the Bush family executed to a certain extent over time. To me, Trump's pivotal moment was when he actually literally, or actually not literally, but figuratively, put on a 14-inch strap-on and took it to Jeb Bush, because they were going to jam Jeb Bush down our freaking throat. And I'm not. I see the dynasties. I think the Clinton. I think that's one of the things that and again, facing Hillary's the same thing. She's a first lady that went and became a senator afterwards because she said, I can do this. And I know that they had the plan since they were kids and that they were, insane, driven people and stuff like that. But she was loathsome from the very beginning. And again, married and didn't divorce the guy when he was getting blowjobs in the White House because she said, if I divorce him, that's going to affect my presidential run.
Exactly.
Right.
That had to be clear. So Trump, as an outsider, eviscerated a lot of that. And I think that was one of his huge benefits.
So
Jeb
there.
Bush is a lot more presentable to me than George Bush was.
Definitely.
He speaks Spanish real well. He's from Florida, where he's dealt with a Spanish constituency for a long time and stuff, whereas George Bush's Spanish was just frighteningly bad. You know what I mean?
Right.
George actually comes across as dumb, with a few things like that, but there's something, concrete. And they got another brother who's actually, real fluent. So at any rate, but that to me was a real gift from him. Because, not to pause on the subject too long, but one of the things they got Hillary with was the emails and the emails and the servers and stuff like that. One of the things that was mentioned in there that, I don't think gets enough attention is that Hillary, and I don't even know if it's 100% on every email or not, but it was mentioned there. And I think it's like somebody should be like waving a white flag. It's like Hillary CC's Chelsea on everything. Who the hell is Chelsea?
Pretty scary. Yeah, who the hell is she?
But they're grooming another generation, right? So the dynasties are here, folks, and that's what.
So hold on, guys. Let me interrupt then. That's 6 excellent points, and I know what Devin is getting ready to go to because I've talked to him about this before. Devin, talk about the Chelsea Clinton CCs. Go. With Trump.
I wasn't going to go down the line of Chelsea Clinton.
With Trump.
Yeah, but on your point about dynasties, Miguel, I truly do believe that Ivanka Trump is being groomed to be president, and I'll explain why. Number one, it's who she's married to. Jared Kushner, I could find you right now and send you 20 links. There's even been books called Kushner Inc. Look it up. Written about how this is Jared Kushner's operation.
I believe that. I believe it all.
This is a man. This is Trump's son-in-law. This is a man who's going over and discussing things with the Saudi crown prince without security detail. He's a hardcore insider Zionist. This man has known Benjamin Netanyahu since he was a kid. He has been groomed. He is a hardcore international elite in the Israel-American alliance, and now he's being worked in as a heavy international diplomat for the United States. And but he's not comfortable on he's not really a spokesman. He's not that front man.
He's very shy.
He's a little Mark Zuckerberg.
No, he's not that. But who is Ivanka. She's
Bang.
beautiful. She's been going to North Africa and giving lectures to women all across the North African world about how it's women that are going to bring change to the Muslim world.
That's absolutely a fact.
Yeah, they're a hardcore. If they are a part of the Trump administration right now, they would be the most centrist of the centrist because they were hardcore liberal Democrats.
Okay.
For years. And now
okay. Let me. Hey, we're running out of time, guys. So let me jump in. Okay. Let me ask you my next question, though. Give me just 2. I'm going to be fair. Instead of 3, give me 2 things that Trump has done that are absolutely reprehensible and you absolutely can't forgive him for it. As a centrist and as a pure rightist. As a leftist, whatever I say, it's not going to make any difference. But as a centrist and as somebody who's from the right, give me 2 different things that if you can come up with them. So Devin, you go first. Give me 2 things that Trump has done, that he's done while in the White House, not grabbing the stuff. I don't know what happened to Miguel there, but he'll jump back on. All he needs to do is hit his stuff again. But give me 2 things that Trump has done that you absolutely cannot forgive.
Well, I got to give 3 because I can't pick between the 3. Number 1.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, Miguel, what he just said was he's got to give 3 because he can't pick between the 3.
I heard the whole thing. I'm with you.
Oh, okay.
hear
You
me
flashed
out.
off for a second. Go ahead.
On things that he's done that I just absolutely think he's been an abysmal failure on. Number one, he talked to drain the swamp. He talked reforming Washington, and then his cabinet has been just flooded with the same insiders. And I don't know if that's because he got into the job and it was just apparent to him right then that he needs people who know the ropes.
Bam.
And he needs people in there. I don't know what the issue is, but that's one thing that's
Hey Devin, let me interrupt real quickly. Remember, in the very beginning, he was putting every dipshit idiot in there that you can imagine. And now, 3 years into it, he's going, no, wait a minute. Okay. And he's suddenly sort of become part of the establishment because he realizes how heavy the establishment hand is and how you can't break it. Do you agree with that?
Either that or his views are maturing, like I say, either that or he realizes more now when he's actually getting.
He's pushing 80, dude.
Listen to me. Either that or he's now actually getting intelligence briefings. He knows the severity of cyber threats. He knows the severity of what. When we think of ISIS from sitting in our house and reading our newspaper,
yeah,
we get kind of a figmentation. He gets the images. He gets the hardcore intelligence on what that means, ISIS. Whoa! We're talking about this organized, heavily armed, radical force that could literally topple nations like dominoes if we don't contain it.
Do you believe that if ISIS is not contained, that it could be the next Nazi Germany?
Yeah.
I agree. Okay, go ahead.
And I think that that the fear of a radical Ottoman Empire reforming into this radical caliphate is a real thing. I used to think that was just all hot air because there is evidence the United States has used radical forces in the Middle East as proxies at certain times.
Certainly.
When they've wanted to do regime change, they've done it in Libya, Syria. They did it in Afghanistan back in the 80s. I don't want to go down that road. My number 2 point is the national debt. You know, he's done absolutely. I mean, he's just. You know, that's another thing where I talk about the conservative movement. Like that was our main battle cry back in 2010, 2011 when the Tea Party movement was coming up. Is about controlling government spending and getting government back down to a manageable size and all this. He's definitely not about fiscal conservatism by any means.
How has Donald Trump expanded the government so much that we have the drastic debt increase that we have if he hasn't expanded the government?
Well, I know where you're going with this, and it comes with tax cuts and military increases.
Oh, tax cuts and military.
But tax cuts, that's something John F. Kennedy even knew. The tax cuts work to spur private business. The problem is you can't non-accompany that with any sort of reform to government. And nobody, that's where there's no political will on either side. And I agree with this when it comes to Republicans or Democrats on this issue. There's no political will to do the tough decisions because they know that the cuts that are going to be necessary to reform are going to people are going to feel it. I don't deny that. And nobody wants to be the one. It's not politically expedient for any of these people to do that. That's why I agree with what Jimmy Carter said. It would be much better if these presidents did 1 6-year term instead of these 2 terms because they're constantly in campaign mode. Yep. They get elected, they do 1 6-year term. That'd be so much better because then they can actually govern and walk away and let history play off their legacy on what they did. Because when you manage a business, you've got to make some tough calls that are going to, and it's not always going to. Okay.
Let me interrupt you, Devin, because we've got to get to number 3 because we don't have much time. Thank you for crediting the greatest president of our time, Jimmy Carter, for doing the things that he's done. And had he won his second election, which was totally botched based on two stupid things and an Iranian hostage affair that you won't remember. But I do, because we watch the news every night, because we had 3 channels, right, Miguel? So give me your thirds, because I want to hear what Miguel says after your third. What is his third unforgivable sin?
Well, my third with him that I'm not so sure this is going to be a very big issue with YouTube, but it is with me and my worldview and where I'm coming from and where I'm very disheartened, and it's where I don't think that the conservative movement can recover from, is I believe he's done more than any single politician, left or right, in degrading national discourse.
Totally agree.
He has single-handedly made the discussion more profane, and I don't appreciate that at all. And there's a lot I can say.
Describe more profane.
More incendiary, more hostile, more personal attacks, more derogatory statements, more crude language.
And tell our audience what that does to national discourse.
It makes us interact with each other in a more crude and profane and derogatory and negative way. And there's a lot I can say about Barack Obama. There's a lot.
Okay, you're at 41 minutes, okay. Miguel. You're at 41 minutes, Miguel. Give me 2 things that Trump has done that are completely unforgivable. I'll get back to you, Devin. I promise. Keep your thought.
All right, I'll sum it up in two fell swoops, and it goes a little bit towards, so we can hand it back to Devin, because it affects, internally in the country. I'll sum it up. I think he swatted Harriet Tubman from being on the $20 bill. I think that's fucking stupid. There's no reason to take a step backwards in race relations if that was already approved and now it's not going through. I think that's part of where sometimes you think things are happening, then they don't happen in this, and he's taking a step back, like with the LGBTQ community and things like that, on a few things, and so in general we could use taking Harriet Tubman off of the future $20 bill as one example of that. And then the other one is, to me, the Saudis really haven't paid for killing that journalist. Not the way they did, and not when, I mean, with my rudimentary knowledge of world politics, couldn't be more clear that the guy died because the crown prince said his boys after, and and they're still selling arms to him. Germany at the very least blocked their future arms sales to Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is the number one. So again, I think his way of dealing with things has affected us internally and externally, because I think no one gives a crap, about the American word or anything like that anymore internationally. You know what I mean? And he's just grabbing money with the Saudis, and instead of making a stand. And here's a situation where, with Europe and stuff like that, we have old allies that would have been right there with us are making a stand there against them. Instead, he stands alone and stuff. And, there's a great meme of the Saudi crown prince in Brazil, I think, at some type of world function. And in walks Putin, and they meet each other, and their handshake is robust, man.
Indeed.
So, I think they're like, I think nobody fears the states anymore, that we're a little bit of a laughing stock for many reasons. But I think, for example, backing off from it's just all kinds of problems. Sum it up with not making the Saudis pay, not canceling their arms deals for something that no U.S. president would have allowed to have happen. And our allies who look to us for guidance, or at least backing in their acts on there, we're left with their dicks in their hands.
Okay, so let me try and sum up what I believe I've heard the two of you say, and what I personally agree with are the 2 unforgivables. Number 1, Trump has taken what was the establishment of the United States of America, and what was the eagle, what was the fortitude of the United States, which is democracy, freedom, mom and apple pie, the American way, and he's thrown that away. Now, look, we all agree that was all nonsense in the first place, but the idea that the rest of the world looked to us for some type of leadership or guidance, and now our leadership or guidance is grab them by the pussy and, take Harriet Tubman off the $2 bill, off the dollar bill, and separate children from their parents at immigration camps. No matter what else the argument is there, that argument is here for Trump. We're talking about Trump. We're not talking about Obama. We're not talking about Bush. We're not talking about Nixon. We're not talking about even Carter here. We're talking about Trump. And what Trump has done is he has said, if you're an immigrant and you come to the United States thinking that you're just going to slide on in, fuck you, because we don't care. And that's what Trump has said to the world. He has said, we're the United States, we're looking after ourselves, and we don't care about anyone else. You, United States first. Well, that's all great until you realize that he totally destroyed a trade deal with China that Nixon made. So a 40-year deal is absolutely devastated. And it's devastated the farmers. I live in farm community. My dad is a farmer. I grew up eating because we sold soybeans to Chinese people. That is devastated. Trump is bailing us out right now because he has no other ability to win these people over. Because if he loses the farmers, he loses a massive swath of middle America.
Now,
that is unforgivable. And the reason that's unforgivable, I'm not done. The reason that's unforgivable is because of how he has treated everything. He has treated everything the way he thinks the deal needs to be made. He walks in, he's taller, he's bigger, he even said stupid stuff about, Biden would go down so fast or whatever, that idiotic nonsense. Can you imagine two 70-year-old men talking about having a fist fight and they're running for president of the United States of America? How embarrassing can we get? The worst thing he has done, and I think we all three agree on this, is he has embarrassed America. Do we agree on that?
Not to an extent, but not on the national stage. I think you're missing the forest from the trees.
I mean, on the global stage. I'm talking about on the global stage.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I don't believe that at all.
And so is Miguel.
Really fast. Really fast, though. There's one problem, and I had this summed up. I'd like anybody, and I know we got some people listening and stuff like that, anybody who can help me with this and verify some of this, because I think it's important. And you mentioned it, so I just want to jump in. Okay, 1G is you're up and running, and now you have a cell phone. 2G is you have a cell phone, and you can call, and now you can attach text to it. 3G is now the ability for video and stuff like that, and 4G was the enlargement of bandwidths and things like that. 5G is the ability for the transmitter, your phone, to transmit back. And that is dangerous.
Correct.
How Huawei is doing that. Very dangerous.
Very dangerous.
And you know what? And you know what? I'm okay with a few farmers having to learn another couple of goddamn tricks to keep national security. Sorry.
Thank you. That's what
I'm okay.
Hold on, Chad, let me talk. Hold on real quick. Man, sorry. I've been trying
I've let you talk. You know what? I've let you talk 15 fucking minutes out of this. We're at 48 minutes. I've let Miguel talk 15 minutes out of this. We're at 48 minutes. Where does that leave me?
Go ahead.
Okay, so what I'm going to say is this. In Farmland USA, all I'm saying is if he doesn't fix this, he loses the election. That's what I'm telling you. I'm not telling you that farmers need a bailout. But what I am telling you is this. If American farmers don't get a bailout, be prepared to pay a lot of money for your food. That's something we learned in the 80s because Reagan fucked us. Remember that.
I understand that. And I'm not against farmers at all, but the 5G Huawei stuff, the 5G Huawei stuff is probably a lot more dangerous than we will ever know.
I totally agree. I think we've only begun to see that. Go ahead, Devin. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. This is really. I mean, I understand that you're feeling this personally, Chad, and I get that. But the forest from the trees. I mean, the big picture on this is the defining issue of the 21st century. This trade war with China. What's going on with there? If we lose this, it's going to be a Chinese century. Make no mistake about it.
It already is.
100% all about tech. All about tech. They have been stealing our intellectual property for so many years unchecked because there's been spineless and feckless politicians in Washington who have been so afraid of the potential consequences to our economy, to their re-election campaign, to international cooperation among the developing Asian nations, that they've been unwilling to even step to China for decades. We finally have somebody in there that's willing to go, and he's not using tariffs as like I want to take us back to the 1980s where we're getting our revenue to the 1800s where we're getting our revenue through tariffs. He's using it as a negotiation tactic because we don't have anything else but war. So it's either go to war over this or shut down, completely chain our internet to where we're directing online bandwidth inside and out that's traveling international, which none of us want, or we're going to have to start putting some pain on China to bring them to the negotiation table. And both sides have leverage on each other. That's a terrifying prospect.
Here's the difference.
This could into.
Here's the difference. Here's the difference. There's 1 billion Chinese. There are 600,000 Americans at best. And that's men, women, and children. There's really 300,000 if you're talking about voting.
300 million.
300 million. Sorry, yeah, 300 million. There's 1 billion Chinese. 1 billion. Ma Bell said it best. In the early 80s, Ma Bell, when Nixon opened up everything, Ma Bell went over in the early 80s, in like 81 or whatever it was. And they said, we're going to sell them phones. And they said, well, how could you sell the Chinese phones? They're communists or this and that. They said, because we're going to sell them to them. And they said, well, they can't afford them. And they said they can afford them for $1. And they said, well, you can't afford to sell a phone for $1. And they said, we can afford to sell a phone for $1 if they make them and then they buy them. So they make them for 50 cents. They buy them for $1. We made 50 cents. We just made $50 billion or $500 million. And we're doing pretty well right there. And that was the economy move that Ma Bell made that turned into AT&T, that wound up being the breakup and all that stuff because of monopoly. And maybe you don't remember that, so that might be a little bit difficult for you. I understand that. So I don't mean to go outside of your historic range of just news media and that kind of stuff. But that happened while I was alive and watching it on the news. And Miguel saw it too. So, literally they went over there and they said, we're going to sell every single one of these people a phone. And by the time they have a phone, we're going to make $1 billion. If we said here in the United States, we're going to make pennies on the dollar. And that is where the trade war started. So the trade war started because Richard Nixon opened up a conversation with China so that we could start to have a conversation with them so that we could sell them goods. In the end, China said, we're going to sell them goods. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Are you mad that China's selling us goods?
No, I think that's great for the economy. I'm one of these people that believes in a free market, free trade type of economy because it's good for consumers. What consumers can buy when we get more bang for our buck, we become more wealthy.
Miguel, what's your headset say? Probably made in China, right?
I don't have my headset on me. It's Blue Parrot.
I don't know. There's a Radio Shack product. So
okay, it's definitely made in China then. But my point is that pretty much everything we buy is made in China, other than some pretty specific things. And the argument becomes, we don't make anything anymore. And since we don't make anything anymore, how in the hell are we supposed to live? So what we're coming down to is, along with 5G, which I agree is extremely dangerous. We have no idea where we're going with it. But if we're going to talk about 5G, then we got to talk about the next step, which is way more dangerous. And Devin, this directly affects you. AI. What about artificial intelligence?
It's all wrapped up in this technological advancement that we're seeing with these. But what you just brought up, that just confuses me. It's why I've always said that I feel like a lot of times, and it's left and right. I used to just say, "Oh, the left's inconsistent," but it's everybody. And I mean, I feel like people need to think tie these issues together. You brought up China having so many more people. Well,
Yeah.
what's keeping us so much more as this world superpower right now? It's our military capacity, our intelligence gathering, our technological advancements. But that's starting to dwindle. And
yeah, but what if we? But guys, what if we stepped aside? What's wrong with America stepping aside and being number two? What's wrong with being second?
A lot of things, because just like Vladimir Putin just said a few years ago, he who controls AI, the country that controls AI will control the world.
Well, there's no doubt about that. But I'm just talking about right now, today, at this moment.
Because we're going to let influence take over territory. That's where I keep saying that my views are dramatically changing on this, is when I'm looking at stuff like this, because there's not this, we live in this world where we think that the world, and I'm not one of those types that's scared of the other and stuff. I embrace cultural diversity. I think that's a good thing, and there's nothing ethnic that's an issue with me. It's more,
of course not.
It's more organized government warring with organized government, and that's what it really is. Under our name, I'm under this name, Washington.
Yeah.
And what they do affects me and affects my land that I'm at, whether I like it or not. I wish we could all get together and sing Kumbaya, but that's not the way the world works, unfortunately.
So, Miguel, what do you think? Same question. What do you think? What do we do? Are we going down the wrong path? What happens if America is second? What if we're just second? We really are anyway.
Yeah, we might already be second. But here's the thing: is the image. It does take a step back, and it does affect things in many ways and stuff like that. Just like, for example, the respect of a trade war or anything like that, negotiations and things. People are standing up to us to a certain extent. Like, for example, Russia's military in Syria. That was a new move. They never sent the military to assist somebody. Now, guess what? Russia is also, to a certain extent, propping up Venezuela. Now, we used to not allow them anywhere near our hemisphere, right? And they are, unfortunately, you could do all the nice talking you want, but Russia's always going to be, even as a friend, Russia's always going to be an aggressive friend. You always got that friend who's overly competitive and stuff like that. They're a different culture, and they don't want to be second either. And that's, I think, what manifested in Vladimir Putin. They actually let the states drive for about 10 years, and we kind of seem to have fucked it up on an international level. So now Putin was like, all right, you know what? Give me back. Let's put the Soviet Union back together as much as we can, and let's go. And I'm going to be number one now. And I sincerely think, that if those are, and China clearly has their own, Sino-centric, I guess it would be Sino-centric agenda, where, Chinese first, if it's China versus the USA, Chinese Americans are going to be rooting for China. You know what I mean? How does all that work out? So you've got two aggressive people sort of coming after you. So it's like, you can ignore that all you want. But if they're coming after you, at some point, you either give up your spot or you got to put up a little bit. And that's what scares me but are they coming after us? Yeah, I think we showed ourselves to be weak and ugly and not good leaders. So we're no longer somebody who can just impress and and get followed. The peace process in the Middle East, is a sham, at this point because they're still trying to copy, things that they did, for 20, 30 years with new actors and stuff like that. It's just all completely used to the show.
So guys, we're at 1 hour. Let's take 2 minutes. Devin, sum up 2 minutes. Miguel, sum up 2 minutes. I'll take 2 minutes. We can do it in any way you want to. Miguel, you go first. Sum up 2 minutes.
All right, I forget the name of the movie. There's a movie where it goes into the future and the president of the United States is a pro wrestler, and that's, I think, where we're heading. And it may even be freaking The Rock, Dwayne Johnson.
I think you're talking about Idiocracy.
Idiocracy, I think that's exactly
Beautiful.
it. Where the number one TV show in the world, in the States, was called Ow My Balls. And really, we've become a society that's that stupid sometimes. It really does seem that way. And yeah, I agree with our buddy here. Someone who he thinks they're all on the same team. One of our people commenting here, James Porter. I think he's a buddy of Devin's, right? I agree with him. I think it's all a sham. I think that there are shadow governments and people that are running things, and it's just it's power plays, right? They're all competing against each other, and at some point, now the Trump faction rises, and the Clintons got put down a little bit, but they'll rise again under Chelsea, and I just see it. I see it. I don't see the real true political game, politics of everybody's vote counts and stuff like that. It's all nonsense.
Devin, go ahead. 2 minutes.
Anytime you want to get on here with us, Miguel, and we can talk about Bilderberg, we can talk about the CFR, we can talk about organized. That stuff's real. About
Rockefellers and the whole thing. I know.
Big shots in science, entertainment.
I made
military.
I made Chad sit through a documentary that basically says George Bush Sr. killed JFK.
It's the most ridiculous fucking thing I've ever seen in my life.
But let me go back to what I was.
I absolutely believe it.
I know you do. I know.
Here's the sum
Scary.
up what we were talking about a little bit.
So here's the question: Who did? Who did? There's no other plausible person or plausible group of people. If there are, draw me a plan.
Okay, hold on. We'll get to that next time. Go ahead, Devin. 2 minutes.
Just summing up a little bit while we're talking about, because we did kind of stray from Trump 2020, but I think it matters.
Not really.
No, because we were talking about him confronting China and about the China trade war.
That's correct.
And I mentioned several times on here that my views about foreign policy have, I would say, evolved a little bit over time.
Okay.
And here is, you guys brought up Putin, you guys brought up China. And here's something that I'm slowly but surely accepting against my will and learning, is that I don't want to use the word colonization, but to an extent, some superpower somewhere in the world is going to have some form of overarching influence over the smaller. And when I look at stuff that's going on, I won't ever forget Mitt Romney warning about Russia and being laughed at, and Barack Obama saying, the 1980s and 70s want their foreign policy back. And then I won't ever forget Hillary Clinton looking at Donald Trump and saying, when they were talking about Brexit, saying, you support Brexit, you support this national wave, you want to bring this to America, but all you're going to end up getting is Europe broken up and balkanized again, and Russia coming in and sweeping up the influence. And I remember then thinking that was a profound statement, but I was too much of a Hillary hater to even investigate it. But she was absolutely right.
Absolutely right.
And then when I look into the Middle East, did we go wrong by not creating strong alliances with the strong men that were there in the first place that had order? Yeah, we did. Breaking them down was but what
it's hard to say.
It really was. I mean, it would have been better to try to build ties there with the men that were controlling it with their own dime, with their own money, with their own hardware. But we tore that down. And all that's done. We can't look backwards and say, oh, well, we did this and this was wrong. We got to look at what's there now. And the problem is, what's even worse than what we did then is doing what Obama did in 2011 before the campaign and pull everything out and campaign on, I ended the war. Because then what happened? The vacuum was literally immediately filled by ISIS. And we had to go back in because there was a freaking genocide happening on Yazidis.
Yep.
And there's nothing to do now. It's either create the vacuum That's going to be, what do you think? Iran and China, Russia, they're all trying to pour into this region that they know we've already invested trillions in blood and all this into, that we're getting ready to vacate. And they know that. And there's so much popular will here but from the citizens to vacate. And you got these hardliners who were totally wrong for a decade and a half saying, we can't do that now. We're too far in. We've dug too deep of a hole. If we ban it now, we're screwed. We lost it all. But that's a hard political thing to sell, ain't it, Chad?
It is. So here's my answer to all of this. My answer to all of this as a far left liberal is this, and as a pacifist, and as somebody who's a humanitarian above and beyond everything else, my answer is this. We pull out, we accept our losses, just like we did in Vietnam, and we say, you know what? The world's going to be what the world's going to be, but what we're going to be is we're going to be world leaders, and we're going to do it through ethics and morals. Our ethics are going to be, we don't bomb babies, brown, yellow, white, or green, because bombs blow the legs off of babies. And I'm not for that. Period. Ever. I'm not for that. I don't give a shit. I'm not for it. I'm not going for it. I'm not doing it. You know, we're a combat sports podcast in general. And Muhammad Ali said, I don't care who it is. I'm not going over to kill people that have nothing to do with me right here. And that's where I'm at with it. And I'm okay with being second, because guess what second gives us? Yes, we have to turn over a lot of stuff. But second also lets us say, hey, you know what? We've got a whole bunch of stuff of our own that we've been getting off of everyone else. And we've been paying in blood for that for decades, for generations, for hundreds of years. We've been paying in buckets of blood, in bone, blood, and brains of dead soldiers to get that kind of stuff. And we don't have to do that anymore, because this is the 21st century. This is the century of the age of information. And yeah, 5G can be scary. And yes, I'm terrified in many, many ways of artificial intelligence. But you know what we're going to get out of all of that? The same thing we get out of everything that comes along. We're going to suffer for a minute, and then we're going to go, you know what? The telegraph sucked. It sucked. And the telephone's really cool. And that's what's going to happen. And we're going to see that change. And I don't think anything we can do at this point matters. I think we're already second. I don't think it makes any difference. I think we go back, we secure our borders, and we say, and I don't mean by securing our borders that we put up giant walls all around us and say we're not going to deal with anybody. By securing our borders, what we do is we extend a friendly helping hand to anybody in need, and we say you are welcome here, because we are a country of peace. We're not a country of superpower. We're not a country of imperialism, and we can do that. And you know what? If Russia wants to imperialize and China wants to imperialize, there's nothing we can do about China imperializing right now. Nothing. And we've proven that, because China just kicked our ass in a trade war that we don't even know we've lost yet.
Okay.
And it's clear to me we've lost it. Do you know why? Because Donald Trump is bailing out every farmer everywhere around me right now. This year, he's bailing us out. And he's going to bail us out next year too, because I believe he's going to win again. I don't think there's a Democrat that can beat him. And he's going to win again. And when he does, he's going to bail them out again. And we've been bailing out the family farmer since 1978. I grew up on food stamps. I grew up wearing my brother's clothes. I grew up that way because we were farmers and we had to be bailed out. And once we got bailed out and Reagan finally came in, and actually Clinton is the one who finally enacted it and said, we're going to make this work one way or another. And we're going to get these family farmers put together. Remember Farm Aid and all of that crap, Miguel, with John Cougar Mellencamp, who happens to be from my state. So what I'm saying is this. I'm okay with second place. We don't have to run the world anymore. We've already proven we can't do it. We're not any good at it.
Let me ask you one question, Chad. Because this, I'm telling you, I would have been way more radical than you. You know this. You've debated me over years. I would have been way more radical on this 5 years ago. Especially on the military stuff. But then I do some in-depth research, and I remember my awakening moment on stuff like Vietnam and Korea and World War II and all this stuff. And it made me like ashamed of myself to the point of tears to realize that there wouldn't have been even a South Korea without the Korean War. There wouldn't have been probably we would have probably seen so much more of South Asia turned over to radical totalitarian communism without our even our botched effort in Vietnam. Did some stuff to prevent the spread of, and when we're talking about communism, we're not talking about a utopian version of communism. We're talking about totalitarianism is really the better word for it. My question is, you're talking about just vacating the world stage at the same time of talking about having a generous immigration policy. What about the amount of people that we're going to be neglecting on the world stage, abandoning them to
not our job.
Totalitarian?
Okay, so then I don't want to see any pictures of starving African kids or little kids in Syria that got bombed and stuff like that, even though they made the American bombs and stuff like that. But that's the bottom line, is they sell it on an international level as well. So
I agree, and that's what I'm saying. Stop.
I don't think then you are a far left liberal if you are willing to circle the wagons. Then that's not a far left liberal. A far left liberal wants to go to Africa and in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where there's 3 million people living in camps.
I definitely
on the other border and stuff like that, and all that. No, you don't.
Yes, I do. I want to fucking dig. Yes, I do. I want to dig wells. I don't want to make craters from bombs. I want to dig wells. That's the difference.
Unfortunately, China's beating you there, and you're going to have to fight in order for it to happen. And
you
don't have the stomach to fight. So it's like everybody's going to be peace and stuff like that, and everybody's.
I don't believe everybody's going to be peace. What I'm saying is this: if we take a stance of peace, then our leadership becomes that we're a peaceful nation. We cannot claim to be a peaceful nation of democracy and freedom when we're going over and bombing people every time we turn around. At some point, we have to say, enough's enough. No more fucking bombs. No more fucking military. We're done. We've got enough military right here to protect our borders, and we don't have to protect anymore. Period.
Every generation of the last century came to the same conclusion. From World War I to World War II to this, that. We don't want to fight anymore. It's over. This was the last war and stuff like that. And guess what?
It's never over. I definitely understand.
Answer me this, guys. Answer me this. Is it moral? Is it really moral and compassionate and genuine and a country of peace? I mean, I've heard this I don't know how many times. How would you feel if a foreign nation was coming in and dropping bombs on you? Well, okay, let's. Where's the context of there? How would you feel if a foreign nation came and invaded you? Where's the context there? Here's a question for you. How would you feel if you're in a nation that's being completely ravaged by its government or some radical militia and the rest of the world's doing nothing? Should we have invaded Rwanda? Should we just have let those people get slaughtered when we knew that genocide was happening? Is that really moral for this established world?
You guys are talking about two completely separate entities here. You're talking about the difference between going in and rescuing people who are being ravaged by their government, and you're talking about the difference between going in and fighting people and imperializing them. That's two different things. And what you're saying is it's one and the same. You're saying if we're going to go in there and fight them, we've got to imperialize them. Why do we have to fucking imperialize them?
Because they can't protect themselves.
At some point, they've got to be able to take care of themselves. And we come back into ourselves. We come back into ourselves, and we say, look, we're going to make it here. We're going to do it here, and we're going to sell it there. And you know what? China and Russia and whomever else wants to come in, India at some point, because they're now the leaders in the world of the biggest population. They're going to come in and they're going to buy our stuff because we have oil, because we have natural resources, because we have technology, and they're going to buy it, and we can sell it to them. Why are we buying all of their shit and paying for everything, paying to protect the entire world so that we can buy their shit? Why don't we start selling them our shit and stop protecting them and say, you fucking protect the world? And they will, believe me, they will, because when their society falls apart, they're going to go, oh, fuck, now we understand what the Americans were doing. I'm okay with second place. I'm okay with that, because that means that we're not bombing people, that we're not the ones starting the fight, and we're not imperializing. All we're doing is selling our trades. Do I think we should be selling bombs to Uganda? Should we sell bombs to some guy on the corner? Well, fuck no. That's ridiculous. I didn't say anything like that. They calling me stupid for saying something like that is asinine, and it's insulting. What I did say was this. There's nothing wrong with being a peaceful nation. There's nothing wrong with that. And guess what happens? Guess what happens with peaceful nations? With peaceful nations, they're able to take care of themselves. They have happy people. They have happy people. And guess what happens when they get invaded? They blow the shit out of anybody who invades them. And that's what we can do. We have the ability to do that with our military. Anyways, this has been three sides to every story, and it's been a heated one, and it's been a fun one. And I listen. I agree with you guys on a lot of your stances, and sometimes it can be really hard to say, I want to educate people, I want to feed people, I want to house people, and I want to take care of people on healthcare. I want to do those four things. And that's really all I want to do. It's really hard to do that because it's not as simple as that, and I understand that. I understand.
There's no single working model for it ever in the history of society. So
the world's more complicated. But guess what? We have 5G and we have AI coming. That means Devin's not going to have a job in 5 years. Your job's done, dude. Your job's done. 5 years, you're 80, 90K a year, whatever you're making. I don't know what it is, but it's gone. I mean, you got to agree with that.
I don't know about 5 years, but yeah, it's coming. I know that I'm not going to retire driving a truck.
There's no way. There's no way. So what do? And none of us are going to retire doing this podcast right now. We know that. So what are we going to do? If we don't have a system that says humanity first humanity.
Here's part of the problem, Chad, is you're ignoring a lot of cycles in life with that, and assume everybody's going to be different. America already got to a point where we prospered so much that people got to the point where, you know what? I'm bored by a factory job. I don't want to make plates for 300 million other Americans anymore, because all it is make a plate. Right?
I agree.
So now
I'm
I'm a YouTuber. I'm going to buy all our plates from China. Right?
I agree.
So are we going to change that type of stuff in our society and our education, or our science sucks now? So it's not like everybody went to work on hyper and mass technology.
You got that one. You got me on that one.
So at any rate, we should wrap it up and join us next week.
Yeah, I mean, at any rate, what we should be doing is we should be investing in education more than anything else. And in order to invest in education, you have to invest in healthcare and you have to invest in feeding people. If you don't do those two things, education means nothing. And if they don't have a place to stay, what good is education?
Let me get one last word, because we didn't really go into education and healthcare, and we do got to have that topic because we've mentioned that on a couple different podcasts before, and we just kind of brush over those issues.
Can we go over it next time? We're way over.
Yes, I was just gonna say what that means in investing in it is, I think we have a little bit different of approach, because there's so many, dude. This old idea that like I've always said about the left, and this isn't meant to be an insult. It's that they draw the right, they recognize the right problems, but they propose the wrong solutions. They draw the.
I don't deny that.
I think that they draw the wrong conclusions from the problem, so they propose the wrong solutions. This old idea of the government just needs to throw more money at public education, and that's how we're going to educate more people. Nonsense. So, but I got somebody knocking at my door, so I do got to go. Good to see you guys tonight. Great debate. This is going to be a good one on camera.
Yeah, I had a great time, guys.
Talk to you guys
I'll see you guys again really soon. Devin, thanks a lot, man. Really appreciate it. Hey, I'm Chadillac. That's Miguel Iturrate. This has been Devin Miller. Miguel, have you got something else to say before we wrap up?
No, all good. Everything was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me. And if you need me for another one of these three sides, we'll jump on here. All good.
Wonderful, wonderful. We went an hour and 20 minutes, so we got to wrap it up. And hopefully we get this loaded up on YouTube pretty quickly. Don't forget, hit the subscribe button below. If you got something to say it. Share, follow. Do all the things you're supposed to do to support people who do podcasts. We're doing a bigger, better podcast than anybody I know right now. We're delivering more content. We're doing more things. We're giving you more options than anything I can think of right now. I'd rather watch our content than probably just about anybody else's because the rest of it's boring in comparison. So until next time, namaste. It's up to you to stop, Miguel.